For the next few minutes, we'll be taking a look at the way that Swales' concept of a discourse community will help us to be able to give shape to the specialized terminology project, which is our final essay project for EN 100 this semester. First, we begin by defining discourse. Discourse actually refers to two different but very closely connected things. The first is the ongoing communication within the population of people with similar or related interests. The second is the subject matter of that ongoing communication. In this way, the discourse of a field is both the communication of the field and also the subject matter that communication allows the members of the field to know and understand. Next, we need to think a little bit about one particular way of seeing language, that is, as social or constructed. Seeing language as social or constructed refers to the idea that language, its constituent words, and the meanings of those words are all results of how the population of communicators uses language at a given place and moment. If a given population decides that a word or phrase has a particular meaning and uses that word or phrase in a way enough times, then it takes on that meaning within that population. We need only think about the way that slang terms go in and out of popular usage as an example for exactly how this works. Along with the definition of social or constructed nature of language, it also makes sense here to think a little bit about the definition of lexis. Lexis is the vocabulary within a specific population of communicators. Finally, we turn to the rhetorical situation. The rhetorical situation is a situation which demands action be taken and determines what meaningful action would be, possibly by a communicator through his or her usage of situation-aware language. To continue with definitions. A genre is a category of communication characterized by form, subject matter, purpose, and the relationship it posits between speaker-writer and listener-reader. Next, epistemic. Something epistemic is of or relating to knowledge and how we know what we know. Often the study of epistemology also includes factors which mediate knowledge between subject and the world around them, such as language itself. Sociolinguistic communication is communication in which the communicative needs of the group shape the characteristics of discourse. This is in contrast to socio-rhetorical communication, which, by the way, communication amongst members of a discourse community is, in that this communication is that where what the group seeks to accomplish is what shapes the characteristics of discourse. Now, to get to the defining characteristics of a discourse community, and these come almost directly, word for word at times, from the Swales article. So these things should seem familiar, and if they don't, it's probably a good reason to go back and read the article again. 1, we have goals. Goals refer to a set of commonly acknowledged and agreed upon goals. These may be public and clearly articulated, or alternatively, they might go mostly unspoken but be generally understood by the membership of the discourse community. Members of the discourse community should all be working toward a common goal, even if they do it in different ways. And in the end, it is the extent to which this common set of goals gives rise to ongoing discourse and thus furthers the field's purposes that demonstrates the discourse community's function. 2, we have intercommunication. Mechanisms of intercommunication among members give us the ways in which members of a discourse community communicate with each other and the manner in which those ways constitute the very bonds that link together and hold the discourse community together. 3, participation. Participatory mechanisms primarily provide information and feedback. One must participate in the discourse community's mechanisms for communication and information, as well as for feedback, to be a full member. These mechanisms allow the individual member of the discourse community to see if he or she is focusing on the right aspects of the subject matter the community seeks to understand through ongoing discourse. Often, this is also a mechanism for recognition of the accomplishments of those members of the community who shape the community's practices. That is, for this last bullet point, this is the way in which publishing members of the community, so those who have somehow come upon new knowledge or different knowledge than what existed, get to publish their findings and be recognized by other members of the community as leaders or shapers of it. Next, we have genre. A discourse community owns one or more genres of communication that it uses to pursue its goals. This means gradual development of specialized terminology, communication, and conventions eventually lead to such specialization of the genre or genres being used that they become distinct from others, even if they began as the same or similar to those others. Basically, to simplify the point a little further, the aims of the community eventually shape the ongoing conversation of the community to such a degree that it begins to communicate in ways that are different than any other community does. 5. Specialized terms. The community takes on a specific lexis. To quote directly from Swales here, the inbuilt dynamic towards an increasingly shared or specialized terminology is realized through the development of community-specific usages, terms, and sometimes also abbreviations or acronyms. The specialized terminology of the field evolves based on the needs of the members of the field to communicate efficiently and effectively about subject matter they know and understand, with other members of the field that also know and understand that same subject matter particularly well. The specialized terminology of the community thus comes to reflect the other 5 criteria of the field. Finally, we have the membership threshold of the field. Here, the ability to take part in the practices of the discourse community reflects and represents an expertise level for the new member. A new practitioner of the field becomes a full member of the discourse community when he or she is able to pursue the goals of the field, communicate regularly with other members of the field and community, use the channels of communication within the community to gain the information needed to continue to pursue the goals, and also to assess practices in light of what others are communicating about, to use the community's genres of communication appropriately and effectively, and to understand and use the specialized terminology of the community's field. Now, we look at the way that the assignment that we have is applying the discourse community model. We ask, how does the discourse community lexis, and specifically for this assignment, how does each piece or word or piece of terminology from the lexis reflect, 1, the community's goals, 2, how members of the community communicate, 3, how members receive information and feedback about their practices, 4, the manner in which the community has specialized and differentiated genres for its own communications, and lastly, what it means to be a full, participating, independent member of the community.